Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm an accountant at a small firm in Portland. I'm not rich, but I've been on my own since I was 18. I pay my own rent, buy my own groceries, and handle my own bills. I thought that made me independent, strong even. But that night, when my parents called a family meeting, I realized something I'd been too blind to see. I was never really part of this family, not in the way that mattered. Before we get into what happened, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, like your efforts were erased the moment someone else walked into the room, leave a comment below. And if you want to know what I did next, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll feel something shift. Maybe it'll be relief. Maybe it'll be recognition. Either way, stick with me. It was a Tuesday evening in late October. The kind of evening where the air smells like wet leaves and the streetlights flicker on just as the sun dips behind the hills. My phone buzzed while I was finishing up a client report. It was my mom. "Valentina, can you come over tonight? We need to talk as a family." I should have known then. That tone. That careful, measured tone she used when she was about to deliver news she knew I wouldn't like. But I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe they wanted help planning Thanksgiving, or maybe they needed me to pick up something from Costco on the way. So I said yes. When I got to the house, the one I grew up in, the one with the chipped blue paint on the front door and the rosebush my mom planted when I was 6, I noticed my older brother Rodrigo's car in the driveway. That was strange. Rodrigo had only moved back to the States a year ago after spending nearly a decade finding himself in Europe. He'd been living with our parents since then, which I thought was temporary. Turns out, I was wrong about a lot of things. Inside, the living room felt staged. My dad sat in his usual armchair, hands folded in his lap like he was about to deliver a sermon. My mom perched on the edge of the couch, her back straight, her expression unreadable. And Rodrigo, my older brother, sat dead center on the couch, legs spread wide, arms draped over the backrest like he owned the place. I guess, in a way, he was about to. "Have a seat, mija," my dad said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat. My stomach was already tightening. That instinct you get when you know something bad is coming but you can't quite name it yet. My dad cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been talking. We're not getting any younger, and we want to make sure things are in order. We've decided to transfer ownership of the house to Rodrigo, along with the retirement fund, about $120,000, and the investment account." I blinked. I didn't process it at first. It was like he'd just told me the sky was green. It didn't compute. "Wait," I said slowly. "You're giving him everything?" "Not everything," my mom cut in, her voice calm but firm. "We're giving him what he needs. Rodrigo has a family now. He has responsibilities. A son needs a strong foundation." "And what about me?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. I clasped them together in my lap so they wouldn't see. My mom looked at me like I'd just asked why water was wet. "You're a woman, Valentina. You'll get married someday. Your husband will provide a home. Rodrigo needs this now." I felt something crack inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet hairline fracture that I knew would spread if I didn't get out of there soon. "Rodrigo just got back a year ago," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. "I've been helping you both for 5 years. I've been sending you money every single month to help with the mortgage. Where does that factor in?" My dad waved a hand dismissively. "That was you helping the family. That's what family does." "But Rodrigo is the eldest son. He's earned this. He worked hard." Rodrigo finally spoke, his voice dripping with condescension. "Look, Val, I get it. You're upset, but this is how it works. Men carry the family name. Men build legacies. You'll understand when you have kids of your own." I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the coffee table. I wanted to ask them how they could sit there and erase 5 years of my life, 5 years of sacrifice like it meant nothing. But I didn't. I just nodded, stood up, and walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I just left. As I drove home, my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. I kept replaying my mom's words in my head. "You're a woman. Your husband will provide." As if my worth was tied to some hypothetical man I hadn't even met yet. as if everything I'd built for myself meant nothing because I didn't have a last name to pass down. I thought about the 5 years I'd spent working overtime, skipping vacations, turning down promotions that required relocation, all so I could send $800 home every single month. I thought about how I'd postponed grad school because they needed help. I thought about how Rodrigo had been backpacking through Spain and Italy while I was grinding 60-hour weeks, and now he was getting everything. The next week, I saw it on Instagram, a post from my cousin Elena, a photo of my entire extended family gathered in the backyard of my parents' house. My parents stood on either side of Rodrigo, who was holding up a set of keys and grinning like he'd just won the lottery. The caption read, "Celebrating Rodrigo's success. So proud of our family legacy." I wasn't invited. I wasn't even mentioned. I stared at that photo for a long time. I studied the faces of my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, people I'd grown up with, people I'd helped move, babysat for, lent money to, and not one of them had thought to ask where I was. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just being overlooked, I was being erased. I needed to do something. I needed proof. I needed to make them see what they'd done. But more than that, I needed to see it myself. I needed to know I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did. So I started looking. The following Saturday, I went back to my parents' house while they were out. I told myself I was just picking up some old boxes I'd left in the garage, things I'd stored there years ago when I first moved out. But really, I was looking for something, anything. Some piece of evidence that what I remembered was real. I found it in a rusted tin box shoved behind a stack of paint cans. Inside were papers I'd forgotten about, bank statements, receipts, and a letter. The receipts were mine, every single one. Monthly transfers of $800 from my checking account to my parents' mortgage account, 5 years' worth. I counted them twice. $48,000. That's what I'd given them. That's what I'd sacrificed. But it was the letter that broke me. It was written in my mother's handwriting, dated 6 years ago. It started with Valentina, mi amor. I remembered receiving it. I remembered reading it in my tiny apartment, sitting on the floor because I didn't have furniture yet, crying because I didn't know how I was going to make it work. The letter said, "I know you're struggling, mija. I know this is hard, but we're in trouble. The bank is threatening foreclosure. If we lose this house, we lose everything. I'm asking you, please, help us with the mortgage, just until we get back on our feet. I promise, when the time comes, your father and I will make sure you and Rodrigo are taken care of equally. You won't be forgotten." I read that line again. You won't be forgotten. I sat there on the cold garage floor, holding that letter, and I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes when you realize you've been played, and you didn't even see it coming. I took the box, all of it, the receipts, the letter, the bank statements. I scanned everything that night. I made copies. I backed it up on 3 different cloud drives, and then I started making calls. The first call was to my bank. I requested a full transaction history for the past 5 years. Every transfer, every note, every confirmation number. They sent it to me within 2 business days. It was all there, a perfect paper trail. The second call was to a lawyer, a friend of a friend who specialized in family law. I didn't tell her everything at first. I just asked a hypothetical question. If someone promises to split assets equally, but then gives everything to one child, can the other child do anything about it? She paused. Depends. Was it in writing? Sort of, I said. A letter, a promise. Bring it in, she said. Let me take a look. I met with her the following Tuesday. She read the letter. She reviewed the bank statements. She looked at me over her glasses and said, "You have a case. Not a slam dunk, but enough to make noise. Enough to make them uncomfortable." I didn't know if I wanted to sue. That felt too extreme, too final. But I wanted them to know. I wanted them to see what they'd done. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of what I felt. And then my phone rang. It was my Aunt Rosa, my mom's older sister, the one who'd always been kind to me, who'd always asked how I was doing when no one else bothered. "Valentina," she said, her voice urgent. "I heard about what happened, about the house, about Rodrigo." "Yeah," I said flatly. Congratulations to him, I guess. No, mija. Listen to me. I was there 6 years ago when your mom was panicking about the mortgage. I was there when she called you and asked for help. I remember her promising you that you'd be taken care of. I have the emails, Valentina. I saved them because I thought something like this might happen. Your mother, she forgets things when it's convenient. I felt something shift in my chest. Validation. That's what it was. Someone else remembered. Someone else saw. Can you send them to me? I asked. Already done, she said. Check your email. I opened my laptop. There they were. 3 emails from my mom to Aunt Rosa dated 6 years ago. In one of them, my mom wrote, Rosa, I don't know what I'd do without Valentina. She's saving us. I'll make sure she gets her fair share when the time comes. She deserves it. I saved those emails. I added them to my file, and then I did something I'd never done before. I built a case, not a legal one, not yet, but a narrative, a timeline, a 50-page PDF document with scanned receipts, bank statements, letters, emails, and a detailed breakdown of every dollar I'd sent, every promise they'd made, every lie they'd told. I titled it, The Invisible Daughter, A Financial History. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed it to exist. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined it all, because soon, very soon, I was going to make sure everyone else saw it too. I spent the next 2 weeks building my case like I was preparing for trial. Every evening after work, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold while I organized documents, cross-referenced dates, and highlighted key phrases. I wasn't just collecting evidence anymore. I was constructing a story that couldn't be dismissed or gaslit away. The lawyer, Miranda, had given me a list of things I needed: proof of transfer, proof of promise, proof of intent. I had all 3, but I wanted more. I wanted witnesses. I wanted people who couldn't be written off as bitter or biased. I wanted the truth to be so loud that no one could pretend they didn't hear it. Aunt Rosa was my first solid witness. She'd already sent me the emails, but I needed more. I needed her to go on record. So I drove to her house one Sunday afternoon, sat in her sunny kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and coffee, and asked her point blank, if it came down to it, would you testify? Would you stand up in front of the family and say what you saw? Rosa didn't hesitate. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Mija, I've been waiting for someone to ask that question for 6 years. Your mother is my sister, and I love her, but what she did to you is wrong. I'll testify. I'll write a statement. I'll do whatever you need. I felt a weight lift. Not all of it, but enough that I could breathe a little easier. The next piece came from an unexpected source. I'd been going through my old emails looking for anything that might help when I found a message from my dad. It was from 4 years ago, right after I'd sent him money for what he said was an emergency car repair. The subject line read, "Thank you, Valentina." In the email, he wrote, "You've always been the responsible one. I don't say it enough, but your mother and I are grateful. When the time comes, we'll make sure you're taken care of. You've earned it." I stared at that line. You've earned it. The same phrase they'd used for Rodrigo, except when it was him, it came with a house, a 6-figure inheritance, and a celebration. When it was me, it came with nothing. I added the email to my file. I also reached out to my old college roommate, Jessica, who happened to be a CPA. I sent her my bank statements and asked her to calculate the total amount I'd contributed over 5 years, adjusted for interest and inflation. She sent me back a spreadsheet 2 days later. Val, if you'd invested this money instead of giving it to your parents, you'd have about $62,000 right now. If you'd put it toward your own house, you'd have a significant down payment. You didn't just give them money, you gave them your future. I printed the spreadsheet and added it to the file. By the time I was done, I had a 53-page document. It included a table of contents, a timeline, scanned receipts, bank statements, email correspondence, witness statements from Aunt Rosa, and a financial analysis from Jessica. I even included a section titled, Promises Made, Promises Broken, where I listed every single time my parents had assured me I'd be treated fairly. I saved it as a PDF. I named it The Invisible Daughter. And then I sat back and stared at it on my screen. This was it. This was the proof. Undeniable. Unspinnable. The kind of evidence that makes people uncomfortable because they can't pretend it doesn't exist, but I still didn't know what I was going to do with it. Confronting my parents privately felt pointless. They'd just gaslight me again, tell me I was being dramatic, that I was misremembering things. And honestly, I didn't want to give them the chance to dismiss me one more time. No. If I was going to do this, it had to be public. It had to be in front of people who couldn't be swayed by my parents' version of events. It had to be somewhere they couldn't run from the truth. And then, like a gift from the universe, I got my opportunity. My mom called me 3 weeks later. Her voice was cheerful, almost sing-song. "Valentina, mija, we're throwing a party for your father's 65th birthday. It's going to be at Vincenzo's, that Italian place downtown. The whole family's coming. You'll be there, right?" I paused. Vincenzo's, uptown. The kind of place with white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. The kind of place where my parents loved to show off. "When is it?" I asked. "November 18th, 7 o'clock. Don't be late, okay? And wear something nice. We're taking pictures." Of course they were. Pictures for the family album. Pictures where everyone smiles and pretends everything's fine. "I'll be there," I said. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up my PDF, and started planning. The party was in 2 weeks. That gave me just enough time. I reached out to Aunt Rosa first. "I need you at Dad's birthday party, and I need you to be ready to back me up." "What are you planning, mija?" she asked, her voice cautious but curious. "The truth," I said. "I'm going to tell the truth, and I need people to know I'm not making it up." There was a pause, then she said, "I'll be there." Next, I contacted the restaurant. I told them I wanted to put together a little slideshow for my dad's birthday, something sentimental with old family photos. They were happy to accommodate. They even offered to let me use their projector and screen. Perfect. I spent the next week building a presentation. Not a sentimental slideshow of family vacations and childhood birthdays. No, this was a presentation of facts, a visual timeline, a financial breakdown, every receipt, every promise, every email. All of it laid out in a way that was impossible to ignore. I kept it simple, clean, professional. No dramatic music, no accusations, just facts, just numbers, just the truth. The title slide read, "The Invisible Daughter of Financial History." The night of the party, I arrived early. I wore a black dress, simple and elegant. I looked composed, calm, like someone who had nothing to hide. I handed the USB drive to the restaurant manager and asked him to cue it up. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said, "I'll have it ready whenever you need it." By 7:30, the private dining room was full, 35 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. My parents sat at the head of the long table, my dad beaming, my mom glowing in a pale blue dress. Rodrigo sat to their right, his wife beside him, looking polished and proud. I sat near the far end of the table, next to Aunt Rosa, who gave me a small, encouraging nod. Dinner was served. People laughed. Toasts were made. My dad gave a short speech about family, about legacy, about gratitude. He thanked everyone for coming. He thanked Rodrigo for stepping up and taking care of the family home. And then Rodrigo stood up. "I just want to say," he began, his voice loud and confident, "that I'm so grateful to Mom and Dad for trusting me with this responsibility. I know it's a big deal, taking over the house, managing the finances, making sure the family legacy continues. But I promise, I won't let you down. I've worked hard for this, and I'm ready." People clapped. My mom wiped a tear from her eye. My dad raised his glass. I felt my heartbeat quicken. This was it. I stood up. The room went quiet. People looked at me, confused. My mom's smile faltered. Rodrigo sat back down, frowning. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice steady. "But I think there's something everyone should know before we celebrate too much." My dad's eyes narrowed. "Valentina, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. I looked at the restaurant manager and nodded. He dimmed the lights and turned on the projector. The title slide appeared on the screen. The Invisible Daughter, a Financial History. My mom's face went pale. Rodrigo leaned forward, his jaw tight. Aunt Rosa sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. I clicked to the next slide. It was a simple chart, a timeline. On the left, my contributions. On the right, what I received in return. 5 years ago, I said, my voice clear and calm. My parents asked me for help. They were behind on their mortgage. They were afraid of losing the house. So, I helped. Every month for 5 years, I sent $800 from my account to theirs. That's $48,000, not including the times I paid for emergency car repairs, medical bills, and holiday expenses. If we include those, the total comes to just over $53,000. I clicked to the next slide, a scanned image of my mother's letter, the one where she promised I'd be taken care of equally. My mother wrote this letter 6 years ago. In it, she promised that when the time came, my brother and I would be treated fairly, that I wouldn't be forgotten. I let that sit for a moment. Then I clicked to the next slide, a photo of the Instagram post from Rodrigo's celebration party, the one I wasn't invited to. 3 weeks ago, my parents gave my brother the house, the retirement fund, and the investment account, $120,000 in assets. I received nothing. When I asked why, I was told that Rodrigo earned it, that he's the eldest son, that I'll be fine because someday I'll get married, and my husband will provide. I clicked to the next slide, the email from my dad. You've earned it. This is an email my father sent me 4 years ago. He told me I'd earned their gratitude, that I'd be taken care of. But when the time came, those words meant nothing. The room was silent. I could feel eyes on me, some confused, some uncomfortable, some starting to understand. I clicked to the final slide, Aunt Rosa's emails, the ones where my mom admitted how much I'd sacrificed. These are emails from my mother to her sister, my Aunt Rosa. In them, she acknowledges what I gave. She promises I'll get my fair share. But she didn't keep that promise, and when I tried to bring it up, I was told I was being selfish, dramatic, that I didn't understand how family works. I turned to face my parents. My mom was staring at the table, her hands trembling. My dad's face was red, his jaw clenched. Rodrigo looked like he wanted to disappear. I'm not here to ruin Dad's birthday, I said. I'm here because I needed all of you to know the truth. I needed you to see what I gave, what I sacrificed, and what I got in return. I looked around the room, at my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, at the people who'd known me my whole life. I'm not asking for your pity. I'm asking for you to see me, to acknowledge that I existed, that I mattered. Aunt Rosa stood up. She's telling the truth. I was there. I have the emails. I heard the promises. The room erupted, whispers, murmurs. My cousin Elena looked horrified. My Uncle Marco shook his head. My Aunt Carmen covered her mouth. My mom tried to speak. Valentina, you're misunderstanding. I'm not, I said firmly. I have 5 years of bank statements. I have your letter. I have Dad's email. I have witnesses. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is what happened. My dad stood up, his voice shaking. This is inappropriate. This is a family matter. It stopped being a private family matter when you made it public, I said, gesturing to the room. You celebrated Rodrigo in front of everyone. You posted it online. You made sure the whole family knew he got everything. So now, the whole family gets to know why that's wrong. Rodrigo finally spoke, his voice defensive. I didn't ask for this. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said, cutting him off. But you didn't question it either. You didn't think it was strange that you got everything and I got nothing. You just accepted it because it benefited you. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. I looked at my parents one last time. I don't need your house. I don't need your money. I have my own life, my own apartment, my own career. But I needed you to know that erasing me from the story doesn't mean I wasn't part of it, and I needed everyone else to know too. I picked up my purse, nodded to Aunt Rosa, and walked out. I didn't wait for applause. I didn't wait for apologies. I just left. The weeks that followed were strange. My phone blew up with messages, some supportive, some angry. My Aunt Carmen called to say she had no idea. My cousin Elena sent a long apology text. My Uncle Marco called my parents out in the family group chat, which I'd muted years ago, but checked just to see the fallout. Rodrigo tried calling me twice. I didn't answer. My parents didn't reach out. Not at first. But then, about a month later, my mom called. I almost didn't pick up. But something made me answer. "Valentina," she said, her voice tight. "We need to talk about the property taxes. They're due next month. It's $6,000. Rodrigo doesn't have it right now, and your father and I used most of our savings for the party. Can you help?" I sat there in silence. I felt a strange calm wash over me. "No," I said simply. "What?" she said, her voice rising. "Valentina, this is the house. Our house. If we don't pay—" "It's not our house," I said. "It's Rodrigo's house. He earned it, remember? So let him handle it." "But he can't?" "Then maybe you shouldn't have given him something he can't afford to maintain," I said. "I'm done, Mom. I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done being invisible until you need something." I hung up. She called back. I didn't answer. Rodrigo called. I blocked the number. 2 weeks later, Aunt Rosa told me that Rodrigo had taken out a loan to cover the taxes, that my parents were furious with me, that the family was divided. I didn't care. I went to Target that weekend and bought a simple black frame. I printed out the first receipt from 6 years ago, $800, February 2018. And I printed my mother's letter, the one that said, "You won't be forgotten." I framed them both side by side and hung them in my home office right above my desk. Every time I looked at them, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, peace. A few months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my apartment, working on a client report. My laptop was open. My latte was half empty. The sun was streaming through the window. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica, my old roommate. "Saw your Instagram story. The framed receipts. I'm so proud of you." I smiled. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen for a moment. Then I opened a new document and started typing. I didn't know what I was writing at first, but then it became clear. I was writing my story, not for my parents, not for Rodrigo, for me, and maybe for other people like me, the invisible ones, the ones who gave everything and got nothing. The ones who were told they were selfish for wanting to be seen. I titled it, "The Invisible Daughter." I didn't need my parents' house. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them to admit they were wrong. I just needed to know that I existed, that my story mattered, that I wasn't crazy for feeling what I felt. And now, I did. If you've ever been silenced, if you've ever been called selfish for asking for what you deserve, if you've ever been erased from your own story, leave a comment, tell me. I'll read it. I'll believe you. Because the truth is, being invisible doesn't mean you don't exist. It just means the people around you chose not to see you. And when they finally do, when you make them see you, that's when everything changes. I wasn't invisible anymore. I never was. I was just waiting for the right moment to turn on the lights.